Hello everyone. So in this video we will discuss the Indian Express explained page of 25th October 2023. So in this page there are two articles which are very important for your examination. First one is about the preventive detention, that is Telangana law under scanner, how preventive detention works. So this article mainly talks about the prevent what is preventive detention and some of the provisions in the constitution and some of the other countries which actually uh, defend this whole system and its relation with India as well. So preventive detention is a very important topic. Now next topic is behind Mumbai's poor air, which is again all about air quality index. So the newspaper always follow these kind of news like graded response action plan, right? So you have to understand graded response action plan as well, and the four stages of air quality index, that is poor, very poor, severe, and very very severe. So these are some of the situations that you need to know about these two topics. So let us discuss the first one, which is about Telangana law on the scanner, how preventive detention works. Now let's see what is actually this preventive detention. So preventive detention actually means detention of a person by the state without trial and conviction by court, but merely on suspicion. It could be up to a year unless extended. Now, a pre trial detention is not the same as preventive detention. The former is an under trial accused of a crime. A detainee can be taken into custody just as a preventive measure, even if he has not committed a crime. Now, there are countries such as Britain and US, preventive detention is a wartime measure. In India, the constitution makes space for this whole crime. Detention. Now, the part 3 of the Constitution, which deals with fundamental rights, also gives the state power to suspend these rights for preventive detention. Despite its emphasis on individual liberty, part 3, which forms basic structure of the Constitution that cannot be amended, contains provisions for preventive detention under Article 22. So, again, this is very important thing that Article 22 is mentioned here. For CLAT, at least, you need to gather information, you need to read this bare provision in the bare act so that you can tackle those legal reasoning questions in your examination. Now let's see what under what laws can the state order preventive detention, right? So among central legislations, the National Security Act, the Conservation of Foreign Exchange and Prevention of Smuggling Activities Act 1974 are example of laws under which preventive detention can be ordered. As many as 25 states also have preventive detention legislations like the Telangana law, which is called the Telangana Prevention of Dangerous Activities of Bootleggers, Daggets, Drug Offenders, Gundas, Immoral Traffic Offenders, and etc. Just the mention of those acts. Now, other examples are the Tamil Nadu Prevention of Dangerous Activities of those drug offenders, these Gujarat Prevention of Antisocial Activities Act. Again, these are the state laws that talks about preventive detention. So you don't need to gather all these information that these state laws are there. You just need to understand the name of the states that are being mentioned in this article, especially Telangana, especially. Right now, what are the powers of the state under Article 22? Now, Article 22 prescribes protection against arrest and detention, but has a major exception. It says in Article 22, Clause 3, Subclause B, that none of those safeguards apply to any person who is arrested or detained under any law providing for preventive detention. The remaining clauses, Article 22, Clause 4, Subclause 7, deal with how preventive detention operationalizes. First, the state, which would be the district magistrate, would issue an order to detain a person when it is necessary to maintain public order. This could also be done through the police. If the detention order is for more than 3 months under Article 22, Clause 4, such a detention requires the approval of an advisory board. These boards are set up by states and normally consist of retired judges and bureaucrats. A detainee is generally not allowed legal representation before the board. If the board confirms the detention, the detainee can move court challenging the detention order. Now, Article 22, Clause 5 of the Constitution mandates that the state is required as soon as may be to communicate to the detainee the grounds of detention and shall afford him the earliest opportunity of making a representation against the order. Now, basic set of facts that are the grounds for detention are required to be communicated in one installment, and the state cannot then add fresh, new, or additional grounds to strengthen its original detention order. The grounds have to be read in a language that the detainee understands. However, even if this safeguard is diluted to a certain extent by Article 22, Clause 6, which says that nothing is Clause 5 shall require the state to disclose the facts that the state considers to be against public interest to disclose. So, mainly Article 22 and the clauses that are there that are mentioned at least in the article, you need to understand that this works towards preventive detention and again the procedural aspect of that whole law, like who can be the authority to detain such or to order such kind of detention orders, right? Especially district magistrate as mentioned here. So you need to gather these things. Now lastly, of this article, how do courts assess detention orders? So for preventive detention there are very narrow grounds of judicial review because the constitution emphasizes the state's subjective satisfaction when ordering a detention. Now the touchstone when ordering a detention on the touchstone on which the order is examined is this subjective opinion of the state rather than the fundamental rights enshrined in the constitution. Now when the court cannot substitute the subjective satisfaction of the state with its own satisfaction, it essentially means that it cannot check the veracity of the facts mentioned in the grounds of detention. Now, judicial review is limited to whether the advisory boards applied its mind, considered all material facts, and whether the state showed obvious malafide in ordering detention. Because judicial review is limited, courts often strike down detention orders on technical grounds such as delaying the decision of the advisory board, communication of grounds in a timely fashion, and in language that the detainee understands, etc. So again, judicial review is there. After passing the order, you can challenge as mentioned in the article 22 and also in the article which again talked about that the judicial review is limited in case whether advisory board applied the whole scenario and whole facts with the case. So again this is preventive detention and some of the topics that are again related to this one is our Armed Forces Act, National Security Act, then Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. These three laws are very, very important because we are talking about preventive detention laws. So that is why you need to relate these topics as well. Now, behind Mumbai's poor air. So, sea breezes in Mumbai long protected its air quality, but since last year, this geographical advantage is weakening. In part, this is because of local weather conditions. The bigger issue, though, is rising pollution. So, again, this article mainly talks about the rising pollution in Mumbai and the loosening of those coastal regions, wind. So, that is why stays there in the air, especially in Mumbai, and these are rising in coming months. So the pollution is almost as same as Delhi. And the article also mentioned that. So again, not for the examination point of view, but you need to understand this as a current topic. But some of the facts that are relevant for you in this for the examination purposes, that air quality index and the graded response action plan, because many a times these paper always mentioned graded response action plan in these months because of the stubble burning and the rising pollution in Delhi. So this article basically talks about Mumbai and compare it to Delhi somehow and talked about the rising air pollution and what we need to know about this, right? So let's see what this article mentions, some of the points. So for long, Mumbai was considered largely immune to the issue of air pollution and the associated problems of haze and smog. And why this is so? So thanks to its coastal location. Strong sea breezes would blow dust and other suspended articles away, keeping the city's air relatively clean. But the last 2 years have shown that this geographical advantage no longer offers reliable protection. Last year saw the longest spell of poor air quality in the city extending from November to January. On some days, Mumbai's air was more polluted than Delhi. So the AQI went beyond 300 in some parts of the city, and AQI of 200 or above is considered poor air quality, while 300 and above signifies very poor. So these are mentioned in the graded response action plan, which was approved by Supreme Court in 2016 and was enforced officially, then applicable, started in 2017, and that mentioned four stages: stage 1, 2, 3, and 4. So one is 200 1 and above. Second one is second stage is 301 to 400. Then stage 3 is 401 to 450, and stage 4 is above 450 air quality index, and the various measures that are mentioned in the graded response action plan, right? So let's see what are the wind patterns. So the direction and strength of winds are often the key factor in determining Mumbai's air quality. The city does not generate a lesser amount of pollutants than Delhi. The emissions from vehicles, industries, and other sources are just as bad as in Delhi and in other major urban centers in the country. But strong winds, characteristic of any coastal location, turn out to be quite beneficial here. Now, winds usually alternate between moving from the sea towards the land and moving from the land towards the sea. This cycle repeats every 3 to 4 days during this time of the year. When the wind is directed towards the sea, the dust particles get swept away. This acts as a natural cleansing mechanism. Sometimes, when the cycle gets temporarily disrupted for some reason, it has an impact on the city's air quality. Last year's unusually bad air quality was attributed to frequent and prolonged disruptions in this normal cycle of wind patterns. Instead of alternating every 3 4 days, the winds were sometimes changing directions after 8 or 10 days. It was not immediately event at the time, but the prevailing La Nina conditions in the eastern Pacific Ocean could have had a role to play in that, according to Gurfan Beg, a scientist who has closely monitored air pollution in Mumbai and other parts of the country. Now, La Nina is a condition in the sea surface temperatures in the eastern Pacific Ocean becomes cooler than the normal. This large-scale phenomenon influences weather events across the world and has a wide variety of impacts. Last year was part of the longest and strongest La Nina events on record. Former project director of SAFAR, or System of Air Quality and Weather Forecasting and Research, a government-backed initiative to monitor and forecast air quality in select metropolitan cities, is in the process of publishing a paper on the role of La Nina on last year's winter air quality in Mumbai. There are two aberrations last year. The frequency of the cleansing mechanism was disrupted, and the relatively calm wind conditions that Mumbai sees for about a week after the withdrawal of the monsoon prevailed for almost 2 months. That meant that even when the wind was moving towards the sea, it was not strong enough to blow away the pollutants effectively. Both these could have been influenced by La Nina. So, again, this article, mainly you need to remember that Mumbai's poor air quality because of the rising pollution. The sea breeze or land breeze goes on weakening with time because, again, the rising of air pollution. This is one of the major reason why these winds are not strong enough to cleanse out the dust as it was happening earlier. So in last 2 years, we have seen from this data, at least we have seen that Mumbai's air pollution is getting worse and worse. So when we compare with Delhi, we can easily find that obviously air quality is worse. So that's all about the Indian Express explained. So thank you so much.